Leviticus, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, I will repay. Often quoted scripture that people use to justify the death penalty. But we never ask ourselves, what is the damage that's being done to a person when they kill another human being?
Capital punishment, better known as the death penalty, is practiced within 27 states. However, there are opposing arguments about the punishment. Many view the death penalty as necessary for criminals who have committed heinous acts. The seemingly never-ending debate over the death penalty eventually all comes down to one question. Should a judge and a jury be able to decide someone's life, or does it violate the Eighth Amendment?
Those who do not. Mr. President, in addition, capital punishment serves as society's legitimate interest in retribution. Justice requires that criminals get what they deserve. Justice demands that such inhuman action not be tolerated. The death penalty recognizes society's belief that there are some crimes which are so vicious, heinous, and brutal that no penalty less than death will suffice.
Many people in the United States believe that if you take someone else's life, you no longer have the right to your own life, and see capital punishment as a form of retribution. Supporters of the death penalty also believe that it deters people who don't see going to prison as a reason not to commit crimes such as murder and terrorism, as well as any other crimes in general. Another argument for the death penalty is that it keeps murderers and terrorists and other extreme offenders out of our public for good, not just for a certain amount of years, and it doesn't allow them a chance to re-enter society.
Court made, and how this is going to reverberate, you think, throughout the country?
Absolutely. As you said yesterday in a decision called Kennedy versus Louisiana, the Supreme Court ruled that a Louisiana statute that authorized the death penalty for child rapists constitutes cruel and unusual punishment and thus violates the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution. The court therefore struck down the Louisiana statute, and in the course of doing so also struck down the similar death penalty statutes of 5 other states.
Many view the death penalty as a complete lack of respect for human life. In the case of Furman versus Georgia, the Supreme Court decided that the jury deciding the sentence of death violated the Eighth Amendment for cruel and unusual punishment. Multiple courts have also cited that the death penalty is not usable in cases of rape or sexual assault, but allowed it to be used for murder cases. In a sense, many of the justifications are an eye for an eye. Justice Breyer of the Supreme Court, in his 46-page dissent over a capital punishment case, highlighted that capital punishment may violate the Eighth Amendment, and in the case of Broom versus Ohio, the defendant was set to be executed, but after 2 hours of not being able to find an artery and injecting it into his bones and muscles, and he then was again tried to be executed. This cruel treatment is one of many examples of mistreated cases, but many more sentences have also been proven innocent.
The very center of this, because the Biden administration has halted all federal executions. So they are asking to reinstate a death sentence when they are not carrying out death sentences. Will this even matter?
It's a fascinating question because it's been hanging over this entire case. The Biden administration, as you pointed out, in July issued a moratorium on executions. They have stopped them. They're not performing them. And President Biden, as you know, campaigned on eliminating the death penalty across the country.
The death penalty violates the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution because it is a cruel and unusual punishment. The same system that was created to sentence people to a fair trial and punishment is being used to punish them by means of the cruelest act someone can commit, murder. Justice Breyer said many death row sentences were also imposed arbitrarily and are marred by racial discrimination. On the other hand, however, in the case of Weems versus the U.S., the court decided that what constituted cruel and unusual punishment was not decided and was therefore open to interpretation, leaving it as more of an opinion matter. Even in the case of Penry versus Ling, the court decided that mental retardation was not enough to avoid the death penalty, even when it was shown that the man had the mental capabilities of a 6-year-old, leaving even more to be confused on what determined cruel and unusual punishment. In many cases like the Boston bomber, however, it can be difficult to spare someone who commits a cruel act with little remorse, and that is where many especially those directly involved, stand divided. The death penalty stands as another symbol of how we are a divided nation. Unlike some things, it is difficult to tell someone that they cannot have retribution for a loved one when many of us have never faced that circumstance. It's important that we educate ourselves on the effect of the death penalty, but also the many errors and innocent people that are killed because of it.